Hello and welcome. Episode 2, Real Rich Advice. So today we're going to talk a little bit about different types of financing that we see in the market. The financing we're going to be talking about is going to be for purchasing property for your own occupancy, investing in property, and as well as developing property. So for purchasing property, there's two main forms of financing that we see. The one is cash, which is pretty self-explanatory, and the other is a traditional mortgage. These are typically amortized over 15 years or 30 years, and they change from being variable rate financing to fixed rate financing. Some of the advantages to each we're going to talk about in a later video. Secondly, we have investment financing. So when we talk about investing on the long term, we talk about two major forms of financing. One, again, being cash. These are typically when projects are yielding a lot of cash flow. That cash as a form of payment for the property seems the most advantageous. Typically, as an investor, you want to see about 6% or 5% cash flow on your entire investment. So if that's $1 million, you need to be coming to see about $60,000 in profit on the property to be getting a 60% return on investment. The second is bank financing. So this is where you're going to be putting 25% down. And with that 25% down, again, you want that 6% cap rate after you pay your mortgage, your taxes, and your insurance. So going again with our example of $1 million property, you're actually now only needing to get 6% of $250,000, that 25% of the $1 million. So with all that being said, sometimes it's actually easier to get a 6%, 10% cap rate off of a bank finance investment property than it is to get it on a cash purchase property. For those reasons, we often see bank financing. Again, with bank financing, you also have to take into consideration that you need that profit after you pay the mortgage, not prior. And then the last thing we're talking about is investment properties for the form of development. So here we see again cash. We also see bank financing in the form of 25% down, and this is on the total project, so not just your acquisition. So if you've got $1 million acquisition with $1 million construction, you need to come up with 25% of both. So that's going to be $500,000. You're also going to have to prepay some of your interest. Typically there's going to be a 4, a 6, or a 12-month interest reserve. The last way that we see, which is some of the stuff that you hear about when you hear ads on TV and ads with financing for low credit and those sort of things, is what we call hard money lending. These are typically private loans. They're commercial only, so you're typically not allowed to occupy the property. And they're typically used in short projects. The reason is the interest rate is high. I mean really high. So the interest rate on a hard money loan can go from 9, 10%, all the way to, I've seen, 18%. Those percentages are very based on how much money you're putting into the property, how long the project's going to take, the history that you have with that particular investor, and whether you as a developer have a lot of history. These are going to be more individualized loans. A lot of institutional banks don't do hard money lending. Hard money lending is typically done with small individual groups of people or individuals themselves who are going to make more of a private loan. As a result, these loans are not subject to usury, which is why some of these loans are very expensive. Secondly, you're also going to often see points. So you can see points anywhere from 1 point, which would be 1% of your total loan amount when you buy the property, is due to the investor. It's not paid back over time. It is when you're there, you write the check. I've seen points as much as 5 points. So that's 5% of the property. You're writing a check, 5% of that price, to the investor for financing property. So those are the three main ways that we finance property, both for purchase, investment, and for development. We're going to talk a little bit more about these hopefully in coming videos. My hope is to have a couple of people talk about it who are actually involved in these spaces more than I am, but I thought it's something interesting to cover.